So here's something interesting. Transnet's latest financial results are out and they've lost 1.9 billion rand. But wait, what if I told you that that number is actually a positive one? Well, at least the trend that it's starting to show. You see, when you have better context about what is going on at Transnet, you start to understand why I believe, and many people believe, that this is South Africa's most important company, bar none. You see, for years the narrative around Transnet has been dominated by a single frustrating word: crisis. Headlines detailed port backlogs stretching out to sea, trains moving at a crawl on crumbling tracks, and financial losses so vast they started to become abstract to everybody. A Transnet story isn't just a corporate story. This state-owned enterprise is a national anchor. If it's not working, it will drag our entire country's economy down. It has a knock-on effect of stifling things like mining and even agriculture, and it can even add more rands and cents to our everyday goods. The financial results for the year ended March 2025 at Transnet don't declare a victory, don't get me wrong, but they do something perhaps that's more important. They declare that the downward spiral at Transnet has been arrested. The story is no longer one of pure crisis, but of a difficult, hard-fought recovery. It's a narrative that's shifting from what's broken to what's being fixed, and it's underpinned by a sense of cautious optimism that finally starts to feel earned. When you look at the results, the most immediate cause for this optimism is found in the raw numbers. After years of grim figures, the data now starts to show clear and tangible progress at the state-owned enterprise. Revenues climbed from 82.7 billion rand, which is a 7.8% increase from the previous year. This growth wasn't accidental. It was driven by a combination of necessary tariff adjustments and, more importantly, actual increases in volumes moved, particularly in the automotive and rail sectors. While container and pipeline volumes dipped, the overall trend has been reversed. This is the first sign that operational changes are translating into financial gain. Even more telling is the surge in operational profitability, measured by EBITDA, which jumped a remarkable 39.4% to 30.6 billion rand. Now, this figure is crucial because it strips away the legacy issues of debt and aging assets to show the health of the core business of moving goods. This dramatic improvement suggests that the company is becoming fundamentally more efficient. As with everything, the most headline-grabbing number, however, is the net loss. Transnet still lost 1.9 billion rand to be exact, but context is everything. That figure represents a massive 73.7% improvement from the prior year's loss of 7.3 billion rand. Now, this isn't a magic fix, but it is the strongest evidence yet that the reinvent for growth strategy is starting to work. As Group CEO Advocate Michelle Phillips aptly put it, revenues are rising, losses are narrowing. The strategy and turnaround is starting to work, but we still have a long way to go.
Revenue is rising, losses are narrowing, the strategy is working.
Perhaps the most stark illustration of the challenges that Transnet faces is the relentless and costly war against crime and vandalism. While the company made progress in reducing overall security incidents by 23%, the financial and operational toll remains devastatingly high, acting as almost a massive drag on its recovery efforts and on the national economy. The scale of the problem is national, but Transnet bears a significant portion of the burden. Reports indicate that infrastructure vandalism across South Africa, with Transnet rail system being the prime target, costs the country approximately 5 billion rand annually. Now, for Transnet specifically, the direct revenue loss in 2024 was a staggering 4 billion rand, a figure directly attributed to the theft and the ensuing maintenance backlogs that actually cripple its operations. The impact is not just a number on a spreadsheet though, it's a daily reality on the ground. The North Corridor, for instance, a critical artery for coal exports, is a prime example. In 2024 alone, this single line suffered 1,334 criminal incidents. These attacks aren't simple theft. They involve the systematic dismantling and destruction of vital signaling, electrical, and telecommunication systems that Transnet needs to operate. Each attack requires extensive, costly repairs, and it even causes massive delays, creating a ripple effect that disrupts the entire supply chain. The financial impacts of all of this are threefold. There is direct revenue loss. When lines are severed and trains can't run, Transnet immediately loses the revenue from moving that cargo. Then you've got to contend with skyrocketing maintenance costs. Money that should be spent on modernizing Transnet is constantly diverted to emergency repairs. Then there is reduced freight volumes. These criminal acts have directly capped the amount of freight that can be transported on Transnet's network, thus hindering the country's export capacity and even its economic growth. Recognizing the severity of the threat, Transnet has intensified its efforts to fight back against this crime and vandalism. A key step was signing a memorandum of understanding with the South African Police Service in September of 2024. They did this to strengthen the collaboration around how to tackle these issues. The company has also welcomed a number of convictions, with perpetrators receiving lengthier jail sentences. This is there to deter people from conducting these crimes in the first place. A very key part of this new sentiment that's around Transnet is the recognition that recovery isn't just about today's balance sheet. It's also about rebuilding for tomorrow. Now, this is reflected in a 44.2% jump in capital expenditure to 24 billion rand. This money isn't just being spent on expansions, but on the unglamorous stuff. Essential work of maintenance, replenishing port equipment, fixing locomotives, and upgrading rail lines. Now, all of this investment is starting to yield real-world benefits. The most significant success story is on the rails, where volumes have increased by over 10 million tons to 160.1 million tons after years of decline. This wasn't a lucky break. It was a result of improved rolling stock availability and fixes to the network. Though challenges like vandalism and derailments still persist, Group CFO Nosipho Mapumulo noted that rail volumes serve as a key measure of performance at Transnet, and this measure is finally pointing in the right direction. The emerging optimism is tempered though by a realistic and clear-eyed view of the immense challenges that still remain. The report doesn't just shy away from them. Theft and vandalism, particularly copper cable thefts, they continue to be a scourge. Transnet still acknowledges that adverse weather and even the declining reliability of old equipment, these are still major causes of the disruptions. The elephant in the room though still remains the company's 144 billion rand debt pile. While the gearing ratio is within its limits, it's a heavy burden on the operations. Credit rating agencies have also taken note, with downgrades from S&P and warnings from Moody's that highlight the ongoing risks. The sentiment here isn't fear, but a sober acknowledgement that financial sustainability at Transnet will require continued discipline and the support of government guarantees, at least until it can get going again, which will all start to provide critical stability. Perhaps the biggest shift at Transnet now is the strategy or the sentiment around it. The recovery plan is evolving from tactical fixes to fundamental transformation of how Transnet operates. The company is actively embracing the government's freight logistics roadmap, which means opening the door to private sector participation. This isn't about privatization in the traditional sense. It's about pragmatism. It's the understanding that bringing in private partners for specific terminals, like the container terminal at Richards Bay, or for a new rolling stock leasing company, brings in much needed investment, world-class expertise, and customer-centric agility. These are all things that Transnet desperately needs right now. The establishment of the Transnet Rail Infrastructure Manager is a concrete step towards creating a fair, open access rail network, not privatization. The sentiment is one of openness and collaboration, a recognition that solving a national logistics crisis requires more than just one company. So what can we all start to take away from this? Well, the sentiment from Transnet's latest results is best described as a hopeful determination. There's a palpable pride in the progress that's being made, and also there's a renewed confidence. On the ground, you can actually start to see it, but there is absolutely no hint of complacency right now. Not all things are going well enough. The company's leadership understands that when Transnet works, South Africa starts to thrive. The focus for the coming year is on measurable improvements, more volumes on rail, faster turnarounds in ports, and embedding a culture of accountability. The goal is to build on this foundation, not only to achieve profitability, but to also strengthen South Africa's global competitiveness, especially as we host the G20 presidency this year. The journey at Transnet is far from over, but for the first time in a long time, Transnet isn't just looking at the map, it's confidently walking the path. Thank you for watching this video up until this point. I hope that this was just as interesting for you to watch as it was for us to make for you. Check out one of these other videos and hopefully they'll be just as interesting as this one. Cheers.